Hello and welcome back to the second video on the YouTube channel today. Again, things are coming thick and fast. We're right in the middle of the transfer window. We didn't slow down during the summer, but my God, are we heating up again now. Today, I am joined by Danny from the Dogger Saints podcast. Now, the reason I'm joined by Danny, and for the record, the Dogger Saints podcast is a podcast all about St Johnstone Football Club up in Scotland. So, for those eagle-eyed people will have seen, today, we signed Alex Mitchell from Millwall on loan. Now, Alex Mitchell was on loan at St Johnstone last season. So, because of that, there is nobody better to have on the YouTube today than Danny. So, first of all, hi, Danny. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Charlie. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, we're all good. Really happy with this signing on paper, it seems. I spoke with you earlier on to organise this, and I also spoke with your podcast co-host, and both of your reactions as soon as you saw the name of the player was, wow, what a signing that is.
Yeah.
Is that the exact reaction that you think most fans who know him will have?
Well, the way I can best sum it up is they say never fall in love with a loan player.
We know it.
Get ready to throw all that out of the window. Get ready to fall in love. He's absolutely golden. He's brilliant. He's an old-fashioned sort of centre half. I will admit. He's pretty unpolished, but just you're all gonna absolutely. He'll be a cult hero. I think you got him for the season, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, come next May, cult hero every day of the week.
Do you know what? It's very rare that you sort of have. You know, I've been doing these now for a few of our signings, and it's very rare that when talking about the player that they had and is now at us, an opposition fan is grinning from ear to ear like you are. So it's ultimately a great sign for us, surely.
He is. He really is. And obviously he's had a few loan spells. I'll admit I'm not an expert on Millwall. I know one of the lads have got there, Danny McNamara, who was at Saints as well. A brilliant player. He went back, actually got recalled. He was in the double winning season, which seems an awful long time ago now when we were good. But he got recalled sort of halfway through the season and got put straight in their first team. He's never been out. But I wouldn't claim to be an expert on the quality of Millwall centre halves, but they must have a couple of pretty good centre halves in there if they're just letting this guy go out on loan season after season. As I say, he's unpolished. And I think it's probably a positive step for him because obviously yourselves, you're only a division below Millwall. I'd have loved to have had him back at Saints. I really would. I'd absolutely love to have had him back. But it's just how things have gone. I think for various reasons. He'd header his own granny if it meant getting to the ball. He'd shove his own granny out of the way if it meant getting to the ball first. I'll tell you a good story which sums him up. Because as I say, he's not a bad footballer. He's not bad with a ball at his feet.
Yeah. But he's a traditional no-nonsense. Oh,
yeah. Tackles and headers. Can pass the ball, can play it out of the back. I'm not going to say it's his strength, but he can do it. He's not just a clear your lines sort of guy.
Yeah.
He does play on the edge a little bit. Not in a dirty way, but he loves launching into a challenge that's maybe not there. But the story that I'll tell you, the old sort of chief operating officer at Saints, Ian Flaherty, who's no longer at the club, but a guy I get on really well with. Sort of bit of a friend of mine actually, and he said when he signed him, he said he was getting coaches to toss balls up in the air at training because he wanted to see if he could header it to the halfway line from a sort of box, from an 18-yard box. He wanted to see if he could header it as far as the halfway line. I'm not sure whether he ever did it, but I believe he got pretty close.
I would really like that to be, even if it's a little half-time challenge.
Yeah.
Maybe get him to try and do. Oh, how good would that have been if they did that as like a signing unveil?
Brilliant. Like goalie wars in the MLS.
It would be absolutely class. And do you know what? I'm going to speak to the club and I'm going to see if that's something that we can get done this season, because that would be absolutely incredible. Right, okay. So you mentioned he's going for the ball every time it's there. He is that traditional, you're not getting past me kind of centre half. Oh. The slight, I guess, worry from the outside looking in, not having seen him play personally myself, is aggression and discipline. 7 yellows, 1 red card last year. Is that something that we're going to have to worry about? Especially, let's say, with the new rules as well, with, for example, mouthing off to referees, things like that. Are we going to expect him to be unavailable more times than we'd want?
No, he's not. To his credit, he's not a mouthy. He's a good talker on the pitch, but he's not a. He was never someone who mouth off at referees. I think the red, I remember that well. That was just after VAR had come in up here. I think it was second game, maybe third, away at St Mirren. And it was unlucky. It was a red, going by the rules. He just overstretched for it, but he'd actually got the ball.
Right.
But he'd left his leg sort of dangling in.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but he followed through and caught the lad. Caught the guy.
You didn't get VAR until midway through the season, did you? Am I right?
That was ridiculous.
I know.
That was. I always remember that because we'd had in 3 games we had about 4 VAR decisions go our way, like overturned goals and red cards turned around. Well, red cards turned around or something like that, or opposition getting a lad sent off on VAR. And then that was the first one that went against us, so that was heartbreaking.
Then you suddenly hated VAR just like everybody else did.
I wanted it gone after that point. I was coming round to the idea. I mean, that was bizarre. The fact that we were actually the first team to have it, or the first game to have it, because we had a Friday night game away at Hibs, and so we were the guinea pigs really. But it was not about the VAR. I think a lot of the yellow cards are just clumsiness. I'm going to go with which maybe goes back to the unpolished side of things, and maybe why Millwall keep, because he was at Leyton Orient the season before us.
Yeah.
And then he obviously was at us for a season, and then he's obviously he's gone to you guys for the year.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, the way we've got to see it, and just for a little bit of context for yourself, Danny, last week we signed a wing back. In fact, it was last week today, because I remember sitting here at about exactly this time last week recording with a Coventry City fan, because we got a young wing back from there on loan for the season, Jack Burrows. And we very much spoke about the fact that this could be a really mutually beneficial relationship, about the fact that he's going to come to us, he's going to be a player, he's got ability, and he's already shown that in the first couple of matches, but also we're going to be able to give him the game time and help round him off as a player. And it sounds like we could very much do the same here with Alex Mitchell. We've got a decent record, of really helping to polish off loan players. So I guess if we can do that, it's then again going to create a strong network with Millwall for us that we can maybe use in future. It shows off to other clubs. Look, you can trust us with your centre halves, you can trust us with your wingers, you can trust us with your wing backs, any position on the pitch. And our coaches and our playing style is going to support. I just mentioned their playing style, and I'm really glad I did, because it's just reminded me to ask you a question. What system did you play last year in terms of defence? Were you a back 3?
We were back 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really good then, because
yeah.
that's exactly how we play. So I wanted to see whether that translated over.
Well, that's what was good, because when you said wing back, I was like, right, I actually picked up on that. I was thinking, I was going to ask you the very same question if you play back 3 or back 5, whatever it was. So this was
all the same, isn't it?
Yeah. You do also with Millwall. Just to pick up on that quickly, I'll go back to the system thing in a minute. That was basically how we got him, and Danny McNamara and James Brown, who's actually signed for us permanently, and a guy, Hayden Muller. I'm not sure. I think he's gone abroad now. Actually, Hayden. But that was because our former manager. This will lead me nicely back into that back 5. Our old manager, Callum Davidson. He'd been Saints he played for Saints and stuff like that. But he was Saints assistant manager. But he'd gone away, and immediately before becoming Saints manager, he was assistant to Gary Rowett at Millwall.
All right,
he was working with him, so that was obviously the link there. And you get some. To be honest with you, you get some good players if you can get a link going with them. We had some really good players. In fact, all of them were good. Some of them not used particularly brilliantly, but some of the thing. Yeah, that was the. And this is sort of where it went a bit unfortunate for Alex at the end last season, because he'd actually been keeping. When he first came in, it was because Liam Gordon, who's our captain, who plays at centre half, he'd kept him out the side. So it was, he came in and he was injured, and then Gordon couldn't get back in the side for a little while.
All right.
And it was Ryan McGowan, Alex, and Andy Considine as a back 3. And then sort of different things after. Sort of McGowan got moved into midfield. Alex sort of moved over to the right-hand side of the 3, where he was very good, actually. He was good either in the middle or on the right-hand side. And then there was injuries through the season. He played an awful lot in the 3. Then towards the end of the season, Davidson was sacked. It sort of fell out of favour a little bit anyway. Just because Davidson could do that. He was a bit
right.
If you had a bad game and he wasn't, and you weren't one of his favourites, you were out. We just had players just vanished for months on end during his tenure. Alex didn't do that.
We know the feeling with one of our former managers. It happens, doesn't it?
It happens. And they've got the favourites and stuff like that. And but towards the end of the season, when Stevie McLean, who's manager now, when he took over as, he'd been assistant and then he took over as interim for the last 6 games. And I'm trying to think, he might have got a start on the last game of the season. Alex, I can't remember because I wasn't actually at that game. But certainly, because sort of what happened was we secured survival with 2 games to go. And I remember for the 4 games, certainly where up to the point when we were safe, we didn't start any of them because McLean had switched to a back 4 and he wanted a left footer in there, so it was Considine.
Yeah.
And then there was Liam Gordon, who's club captain. The thing, a lot of people were all in favour of Alex Mitchell playing ahead of Gordon. The issue there was we won 2 games out of those 4, and Liam scored won them both 1-0, and Liam scored. He scored 2 goals in about 200 games before that, and then scored 2 in 4 games, and he kept us up. So I couldn't really say much. But
no,
I think this comes back to why a lot of people would have loved him back. Loved to had him back because Gordo's form's just sketchy. So I've no idea where we could have played, but that's obviously material for you guys. But in a free, it'll be brilliant.
It's really positive to hear, and I'm just going to pick up for those that haven't had a chance to listen to the full podcast that was released last night. I know a day earlier than usual. The Paudie O'Connor news. So Danny, for yourself, Paudie O'Connor is our current club captain, centre half. He was, I believe, he did actually get our player of the season last season. He's a cracking player. There was rumours the other day that he was under bid from several championship clubs. Gary on the podcast made sure to rubbish that. That is not the case. He had it on authority from trusted people. That rumour is simply that. So I saw a few comments on Twitter today saying that this is going to be a direct replacement for Paudie O'Connor. That is not going to be the case. Whether Paudie goes or if Paudie goes now before the end of the season, which at the minute doesn't look likely, but if he does, we will have to bring in another. But at the minute, this looks more like it's going to be an option either with or for Adam Jackson, I would probably assume. But coming kind of back to yourself, Danny, you sort of mentioned a little bit about back in the last season. For the record, I have just checked. He did play your final game of the season against Livingston. Yeah, he did. He played full 90 as well.
I was running a marathon that day. I'm going to completely expunge myself from any sort of. I'm going to get my excuses in early.
Poor priorities there. So sorry, guys. I should have had somebody on a little bit more knowledgeable about the situation.
I should have got Sam on. He's my co-host. He was there.
No, just not good enough. But yeah, you kind of alluded to the fact that you were in a little bit of trouble and close to relegation back in the last season. Now, I kind of mentioned before we started recording that I've got a very base level idea of some of the stuff that's been going on at your club over the last few years. But could you kind of give us a little bit of a summary, if you like, of where are St Johnstone at the minute?
In a very, very bad way, a horrendous way. We're at a bit of a delicate stage, actually, if I'm being honest. I have to go back. I mean, I don't like kicking people who aren't there anymore, but this is chickens coming home to roost. So, we've had a change in the summer of the chairman retired. And one of his fellow board members retired. So we've had a new chief exec come in and a new board member, both been involved with the club before. And again, cards on the table, chief exec's actually a big mate of mine, but so I'm going to be nice about it. If I'm nice about it, it might be biased, but he's come in with the chairman's dad, who was the previous chairman from the 80s up until 2013, I think. Right. Steve took over. So Jeff's come back in as club president or honorary president, but he's still the owner, still the money man. He's given Stan, my mate, his chief exec, a brief of getting this wage bill down. And also we've had the change in manager, obviously. And Stevie, the new manager, he's a bit of a hospital pass, to be honest with you, he's been given. Right. Because for the last 2 seasons, the former chairman and the former manager, who are both I like both of them, but they've gone away a little bit from what the club has done for years, and they were just throwing money about by Saints' standards. I mean, we signed 4 players. I think Davidson signed 40-odd players over 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Or 3 seasons, going back to the one where we're actually good. He signed 4 players for fees, paid for 4 players.
Right.
And they've played 15 games between them. And 3 of them left without recuperating any money, and the other one So that was E.T. Entertainment, John Mann, and Theo Bear. And then Nicky Clark, who's actually a good player, good centre forward, but has a massive history of injuries, which has come back, and we've not seen him since January. And it has made a massive difference because he's got a real good physical presence up front. He's not a big lump of a boy, but he's experienced and intelligent. But yeah, so now the strings are about to be tightened. We lost. The squad was too big. Basically, I was thinking back earlier today, like this time 2 years ago, this week, we were playing against Galatasaray in the Europa League. And now we're here. And we lost our two best players, Jason Kerr and Ali McCann. Lost them just before the start of they started the 2021-22 season.
Right.
Because they played the European qualifiers, and they probably would have hung about if we got into the group stages.
Yeah.
Because we had a go at the Europa League, and then we had a go at the Conference League as well. Played against Lask. Drew one each in both of the away legs, and then lost them at McDermott. Sort of quite unfortunately with Galatasaray. Lask we went to pot. Then lost. Basically, that side now, the double winning side from, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Or the season started 3 years ago. There's no one left. All the players that were good left. We've not been able to bring in players of requisite quality to match them up, and it's just gone. It's like I said, it's chickens coming home to roost. We had. I don't know whether you're familiar with the League Cup structure up here. How that's done.
Very, very briefly. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, but just from the very brief runnings I've had with it on Football Manager, if I'm totally honest, I'm not going to try and pretend otherwise.
No. So for anyone listening or watching that isn't familiar, if you're in European competition, you go straight into the knockouts. So that starts at a second round and then quarterfinals, semi-finals. So you actually, if you get into the knockouts, you're only two, because semi-finals are played at Hampden. So you're only 2 games away from a day out at Hampden, where you'll inevitably get whipped by one of Celtic or Rangers. But you never know your luck. You might avoid them or whatever.
Yeah, you can dream.
You can dream. But if not, you end up in there's a group stage, which has its pluses and negatives. It essentially acts as most clubs pre-season because of when it's played.
Yeah.
So I think there is a little bit of that in there. It's a good chance for teams from the lower league.
Yes,
because
I believe because we've got a lad out at Falkirk and a lad out at Ayr United, and both of them have been playing a lot of Scottish League Cup games over the summer. So yes,
so that went badly for us. We lost to Stenhousemuir, who were in the 4th tier. 1-0, got completely outplayed, totally outplayed.
Oh, really?
Then went and won at Alloa, I think a 3rd tier, because there's a seeding system in here, so you only get one Premiership club in each pot. Or some seasons, depending on Europe, there's a couple. But then got back to McDermott, came against Ayr United, lost, got knocked out, and then there was a game against Stirling Albion. Stirling's all down the road, so it was a little bit. It was a good thing because they bought a good travelling support up and stuff like that. It's only half an hour away from Perth, and I was back in the pub, back in the Dogger, with half an hour of the game still to play, and we were 4-0 down when I left. Again, and that's a 3rd tier side. So that went badly. Gone into the league season. There's a few new faces, but they're going to need time to maybe gel. But it's looking, they need to gel pretty quickly. Otherwise, we could get really cut adrift.
Well, I definitely wouldn't blame you being back in the pub that early then. And Speaking of the Dogger, I'm going to have a little guess that's where the name Dogger Saints comes from.
That's exactly that. So this is a luxurious surroundings of the Railway Staff and Caledonian Bowling Club. The first time I set eyes on it, I was like, where on earth am I being taken here? But it's just this. It's a social place. It's a great place. It really is. Social club. We're going before and after games, and when they're not games or whatever. Weekends are largely spent in there. But it's the name the Dogger because we, for obvious reasons, we get asked this a lot, and particularly when we first started out, and nobody could quite get their head around it. The Dogger is the name came from, as I say, it's Railway Staff Club. It was one of our mates' sort of dad's. He was they all used to go to another club that's no longer there, the Jeanfield Club.
Right.
Anyway, he was like, one night he said to his missus, I'm just going to go over. I'm not going down to the Genie tonight. I'm just going to go over the road to the staff club or to the bowling club. And his wife goes, what are you going in that dog hole for? This was probably about 40 odd years ago.
Right.
And from then on, it grew to the Dogger. And so when all my mates and whatever started going in and started, it was a flag for a European game that we got. And it was just decided, we need a name on it. So it's Dogger Saints. And then that's how it started from there. And then when we started the podcast, we've got to take that on.
Do you know what? It's funny how those little stories, something so small, then gets passed on, and it always ends up around a pub, doesn't it? These little stories,
invariably.
I tell you, if I am ever up watching a game at St Johnstone, I will 100% have to come in and
give us a shout, get yourself up. You watch some terrible football. But you'll watch some terrible football. We'll have a good day.
But if the beer's nice, who cares?
Oh, it's top.
That's always my logic.
You never get a bad pint in there.
Well, honestly, Danny, thank you so much for coming on and talking all things Alex Mitchell and St Johnstone. Good luck for the whole season. Sounds like you're going to need it. And hopefully, I can send you a message in May saying you were right about him becoming a cult hero.
Well, I'll be keeping an eye out on him. I'm certainly
100%. Everybody, again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't checked out the video from this morning, that is the preview for Shrewsbury Town away on Saturday. Again, I mentioned it in that video, but I'm going to mention it again. Thanks so much for helping us hit the 1,000 subscriber mark at the start of this week. Go check out the podcast that was released last night. I told you content was coming thick and fast. I have not sat down with it all recently. So honestly, please make sure to go and check it out as you all already are. And just a little heads up as well. As you know, we are a part of the TalkSport fan network now. We did apparently get featured on actual TalkSport radio overnight last night. I don't know what time, so I haven't got any of those details, but it has given us a little bit of like a boost in numbers and such and downloads. So yeah, it's all coming positive at the minute, and everything's on the up. So that's all down to you guys as well for watching and listening. So thank you so much. Again, thank you, Danny. And quite frankly, up the Imps.